Welcome everybody. Today is the 80th episode of Let's Do Lunch, and it's Thursday, so it is our rightstech forum day. And before I introduce our guests, please let me remind you that we have our chat open, so please go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat. And when you do that, make sure to select all panelists and attendees from the drop-down so that everybody sees your introductions rather than just the few of us on the panel. Also, if you have questions for the panel today or the speakers today, you can put them in the Q&A, which is on the bottom nav just to the left of the chat. We love getting your questions, and we'll try to answer them all throughout the session today. Finally, there is another interactive feature we'll have today, and that is we'll have our poll about midway through, and we have some great questions. We look forward to getting your thoughts on a few different topics. Today's topic is on user-generated content and the value in licensing of UGC. And our host for the show is Paul Sweeting. Paul, come on to the show.
Thanks, Ned. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us here at the rightstech Roundtable. Hope everyone's staying safe and healthy. Before we get to the speakers today, as usual, a couple of headlines from the world of rightstech. First, a story we've been following for a while here, and that is that capital continues to flow into the realm of copyrights. That is investment capital. So just this week, Concord, which has been one of the prominent buyers of song catalogs, raised another $600 million in debt financing arranged by JP Morgan. That comes on top of the $450 million revolving credit line that they had previously arranged. So they're now just north of $1 billion in financing available to invest in additional copyright portfolios. Also, the UK's One Media IP group raised $8 million for buying music copyrights. That's obviously not quite in the same league, but it's an indication that the capital continues to flow into copyrights, which I find to be a very interesting trend. Secondly, and an issue that deals directly with or bears directly on our topic for today, there have been a flurry of deals lately involving primarily music rights, both master recordings and publishing, with various UGC platforms and services. Just in the past week or so, Licked, which is a company that sources music for creators to use in their videos, inked a deal with Warner Music Group, which follows on the deal they had reached previously with Universal Music Group and Universal Music Publishing Group. Warner Music again itself acquired IMGN Media for reportedly about $85 million. IMGN is a company that creates Instagram memes. And UMG struck a deal just, I think, last week with Soundtrack Your Brand, which is a company that sources music for advertisers and brand marketers for use in videos that they create. And of course, there was the United Masters deal with TikTok. So peace is sort of breaking out between at least some rights owners and UGC platforms, and it's starting to look like this whole UGC thing can stick around for a bit. So that takes us to our topic for today, which is the licensing of UGC for legitimate commercial use and by brands, advertisers, broadcasters, filmmakers, TV producers, and so forth. And one of the companies that has helped pioneer that space is Jukin Media. And I'd like to ask Jonathan Skogmo to join us, if you're there, Jonathan. There he is. Jonathan is the founder and CEO of Jukin Media. It has more than 200 employees now around the world. He's based in Culver City, but they have offices in London and in where was it? It was somewhere in
New York, New Delhi.
New Delhi,
and,
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Jonathan started the company back in what, 2009?
Mm-hmm.
And he's been named. He was named to Hollywood Reporters 35 Under 35. He then was named by Multi-Channel News in their 40 Under 40 group. He's also been named the 2019 EY Entrepreneur of the Year for the Greater Los Angeles region. He's what you might call a prodigy. He's a member of the Producers Guild of America and co-chair of the online video committee there. And he's produced more than 200 hours of linear TV programming for Fox, MTV, Discovery, and several others. So Jonathan, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I suspect most of our folks out there know about Jukin, but for the few who might not, could you sort of briefly describe your business and your business model?
Yeah, happy to give you a breakdown. So at Jukin Media, we believe we're a next generation media company, except everything we do is powered by the subject you were talking about, is user generated content. So we find a lot of value in these videos that everyday people are creating. They're going out and filming themselves. And we actually have a team of folks that are helping us find these videos, these really great stories that everyday people are creating. And we acquire the rights from those video owners. And we help them monetize, and we also monetize that content through ourselves. And kind of the infrastructure that we built is a licensing model, a publishing model, and a long form model for us to monetize these really great video assets.
And when you say you clear the rights to the video, you're clearing all of the elements that might be, all the copyrighted elements that might be included in that video?
Absolutely, yeah. So we're getting appearance releases. We built some really kind of great technology to help us, identify these really great videos. Because as you know, so much content is being uploaded to the web every single day. I think YouTube alone is about 500 hours per minute just on YouTube. And we know they're not the only game in town anymore. So there's so much content being uploaded every single day. And our job is not only to identify these really great videos, but then find the rights holder, which is also a challenge in itself, and then do additional rights and clearances from that.
So how do you actually find the rights owner? I mean, some people identify themselves, but I mean, and may already, have something in place or to help them monetize. But a lot of the content that goes through your system is just from random folks.
Yeah, so I think that's something I pride ourselves in. It's a technology and methodology that we've evolved over the last 10 years. We've spent a lot of money on the tech side. Essentially what we're doing is putting a giant filter on the internet, leveraging public APIs from a lot of these different platforms, leveraging our team of researchers. I mentioned we have folks in New Delhi, but we also have people around the world that are inside our system, inside our CMS, that are helping us identify these videos. And because we put a video in our system, just because we find a video, we do have to find that rights holder. And so there's a lot of kind of tricks to the trade to making sure that we have the right video owner. And that's everything from us looking at what was the timestamp of the video when that video was uploaded, on what platform. That's usually a good indicator. And then plus, once we identify that video, we're actually reaching out physically to the video owner, asking them a handful of questions to verify that they are the owner. And then they're signing, a license agreement. So there's a few different steps through that process. Because we are in the IP business, we're essentially acquiring someone else's IP and representing that IP. It is so important that we get that right video owner, and we get it right a lot of the time.
And then you're clearing the rights for use across multiple platforms and use cases, correct?
For us to maximize that revenue and monetization, we are getting all media worldwide perpetual rights, and that allows us to monetize that content to the maximum.
So, as you mentioned, when you started, YouTube was the big kahuna, and it still is, obviously, but there are a lot more platforms out there and a lot more content. I mean, there's TikTok, the TikTok clones, Triller, Reels, huge amount of UGC content. What, first of all, are there kind of discernible trends in the type of content that is A, being created, and B, going viral, that it might have some monetizable future to it?
Well, I certainly have seen the evolution of user-generated content. I don't know that many people have spent their entire career on that. I just kind of landed in this role and this really niche genre that now has gone, I think, more mainstream than ever. So I think it's a very interesting time to be involved in this category of content. Just to go back a little bit, one of my first jobs in Hollywood 15 plus years ago was I was a researcher on a clip show. Think of America's Funniest Home Videos, a derivative version of that. My job was to go to the P.O. box every day and pick up VHS tapes and DVDs, because that was the only way for people to send in their tape and for a chance to be on the show, as we had a call to action at the end of every episode for a chance to be on the show, send in your tape to this P.O. box in Hollywood. And I was the guy going to the P.O. box in Hollywood and literally picking up those tapes, literally coming back to my office, putting those tapes, VHS tapes, inside the VHS player on my desk and watching these really videos, and then doing the additional clearance work behind that. So I certainly have seen all the trends for the last 15, 20 years of this type of content. I do think there is something, that's very universal that I found over the years. What makes this content really good? And it just goes back to the oldest of times of storytelling. Does this video, whether it's 30 seconds, 10 seconds, 1 minute long, telling a really great story, right? And that story could be anything from a cat video to a guy falling over to something amazing that's never caught on camera before. Does it have that 3-act structure? Does it have a beginning, that climax, and some sort of conclusion? And I really feel like that is kind of the universal language at the end of the day. Is it telling a good story and capturing that in X amount of time?
And when you're making these videos available to other platforms and to brands and so forth to use, how has that demand curve changed over time? Is that, are they looking for the same thing they were looking for when you started?
Yeah, it's totally evolved. It's totally changed. I think, been part of that evolution. I pride ourselves in Jukin to help make user-generated content more mainstream. You talk about kind of rights holders and rights tech. I mean, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 6 years ago, people were stealing this content. They still do today. They think just because it's on the internet, the content is free, that they can use it in any production they want. And as we all know, that's not true. And I think we've done a really great job of building a marketplace that's able to host this content. So we have 65,000 plus videos in our library that we built this marketplace. Think of it as, I would say, the Getty Images for viral video or user-generated content, where we license to every morning show, news show, talk show, clip show around the world. That's brand, advertiser, news publication, digital publication. But to answer your original question, if we go back, 10 years ago, 9 years ago, when we first started the business, it really was, we were just licensing back to these clip shows. Me being a producer, so I was a researcher on these clip shows, and I started producing a handful of these clip shows, particularly around the writer's strike. If you remember, non-scripted TV shows got very popular. YouTube got very popular. Proliferation of these mobile devices got very popular. People were consuming this content on these mobile devices. They're creating content on these mobile devices. And so these clip shows became very popular. And I started producing a handful of these clip shows for various production companies and networks. And when I quit my job for Discovery, one of the first avenues for us to license this content, where I really understood the market, were these clip shows. And clip shows were very popular in 2000, in the range of YouTube becoming popular in the area of between 2008, and they're still popular today, but 2014, 15, that was our main source of revenue, were these clip shows, us licensing back to these shows. You fast forward today, our licensing business that has the kind of entertainment, I would say the publishing side and the advertising side is now outpacing our entertainment business. So 7 years ago, there wasn't a brand that would talk to us. User-generated content wasn't safe. It wasn't brand friendly. You couldn't clear the rights holder. But today, it's our fastest growing business, and now it's outpacing our entertainment business. So I think last year alone, we worked on over 1,000 brand campaigns with advertisers. Why do advertisers like it? Well, this content is raw, it's authentic. You can't remanufacture some of these moments. I think advertisers really want to be part of that conversation, especially when this content is being created by everyday people. They're using their brand or service in the video. They want to be part of that video. They want to own that video. They want to own that conversation. And so brands will actually hire us to help us find videos for them of people in their stores or people using the products or reacting to some sort of emotion. And particularly in the COVID world, I think that business has grown. We've actually benefited on that side of our business.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. You mentioned the writer's strike before. Obviously, there's been another massive disruption in the production world, content production world, and we're still in the throes of it, and maybe for some time. How has that had a material, measurable impact on either the supply side or demand side of your business?
Yeah, we've certainly seen challenges on parts of our business. I would say on our licensing business, we've been a beneficiary of COVID because we're so limited in production. Productions can't, whether it's on the entertainment side or on the kind of the advertising side of licensing. We've definitely benefited there and been there for brands and production companies that have wanted to create content when they can't because they're limited by physical production. And so I think in the first few months, I think it was either March or April, I think it was March and then April, it was our biggest month ever of working with brands and advertisers and creative agencies in March, and then it happened into April. We were involved in a lot of these campaigns working with Fortune 500 brands. If you saw a lot of these television campaigns or digital campaigns that were around, we are in this together, people coming together. It was really kind of feel good and positive conversations and campaigns. A lot of nurses crying, nurses dancing, people cheering nurses. We got a lot of nurse videos. And so we were happy to help bring a positive message and work with these brands as they wanted to be part of this COVID conversation, because you can't escape it right now, right? And I think that's what's so valuable about UGC. It is so real, it's authentic, it's relevant, it's timeliness. You didn't want to see a fake commercial of people dancing or hanging out. I don't know, I see some commercials now or even productions, and I'm wondering why people aren't wearing masks. I'm just so used to people wearing masks, and I think we were very lucky that we were able to help some of these advertisers go through this period and reach their audience in a really authentic way. It doesn't feel unauthentic by having these kind of massive productions of rolling old commercials. I think they want to be part of this this conversation that was all on everybody's mind, and still is on everybody's mind.
So talk a little bit, if you could, about how the deals that you're making on both the buy side and the sell side have evolved over the years. I mean, are they substantially the same as when you started, or has the deal structure gotten more complicated?
Yeah, I think we're just like any IP business, right? We're going to try to get all the rights as we can when we're doing the buy side. That has changed and evolved a little bit about the terms over the years, but essentially have stayed the same. Relatively, some people, when we're acquiring a piece of content or representing a piece of content from a video owner, sometimes they want cash up front for their video, which we're happy to do and have done. And sometimes it's a revenue share. I think it has been revenue shares where they're getting an ongoing royalty. And we're happy to do either or, and sometimes it's a combination of both. But we're getting all the rights that we can, again, to maximize that monetization. So then when we relicense it, when we're selling it to somebody else, licensing it to somebody else, we're doing that for a limited rights, limited window, limited term. And that's just like any licensing business. And so I'm happy that our business that, I believe we created the market, we created this opportunity. We've paid over $25 million to video owners over the course of the last 10 years.
And you're paying them directly, or are you working through intermediaries to make those payments?
We pay them directly. Yeah, we built a pretty complicated, customizable financial system for us to do all these micro payments. It certainly wasn't easy and still not easy, but I'm very proud that we've been able to do that over the course of a very short period of time. I think Relatable America's Finest Home Videos, for example, I think it took them 20 years to pay $10 million. We did that and much more in less of time. So really proud of the technology we built. I think it's only the last 5 years. It's actually been 25 million. So really proud of what we've been able to do there and give money, especially in the COVID time, where obviously people are having economic trouble. It's certainly hard to bring in some passive income, but we've been able to create that passive income for folks. And I think the first quarter we paid $1 million, over $1 million to video owners in Q1 of this year.
So one of the things that seems that has changed over the years is that a lot of the content that's on UGC platforms, which started out as a purely amateur endeavor, has become much more professionalized. You have people who make a living as influencers on TikTok or YouTube or whatever. In many cases, they're working directly with brands. How has that dynamic affected the overall, business of securing rights, clearing rights, and then making the content monetizable?
Yeah, I think the process for us hasn't changed. It certainly has evolved, and we've gotten better. And so for us to be able to scale that business, we certainly have changed our internal process. But I think what I've said before is that, it's the greatest time ever to be in user-generated content. We talk YouTube's not the only game in town. I feel like there's a new app being launched now almost every month of open platforms, of folks encouraging folks to upload content. It's really kind of crazy, the explosion of the consumption and the creation, and certainly the creation during this time. We acquired over 650 videos in the first half of the year. They were really COVID specific. And it's really kind of interesting, the content creation, how creative folks have been during this time.
And how much do you get involved in acquiring videos that have been essentially professionally produced with the, or do you try to stick to the purely amateur content?
That's a great question. So we essentially try to avoid the influencers, the professional content creators that are doing this for a living. We don't want to be a main source of income for anybody like a lot of these folks are. Again, it's going to be passive income for them. It's going to be additive. It's going to be that just regular guy who's a police officer or fireman, whoever, doctor, who has a main job, and they happen to catch this really amazing moment of something happened in the front yard or happened with their family. So a lot of times we're really just kind of dealing with everyday people, accidental content creators, I like to say, that happen to catch this really amazing moment on camera. That's
so
not for every
you want
video.
that authenticity in the
Absolutely.
video.
Yeah. So it's less about, people come to us all the time, like, let's work for your influence. We want to see your influencer or us, or I know you work with influencers, and that's really not the case. It's really not our core business. It's really these everyday people that just happen to get something caught on camera, which is amazing. And some videos have earned, well into the six figures, which is really kind of crazy that this video they happen to catch, that becomes that zeitgeist moment, that pop culture moment that everybody's talking about.
Just a reminder to folks that if you have questions for Jonathan, you can put them in the Q&A queue. If you've already put them in the chat room, maybe you could move them over. That'd be easier for us to spot. The sort of business, the sophistication of virality seems to have evolved quite a bit over the history of UGC. What can you talk a little bit about what you see as the essential elements of virality, and how have the tools and techniques for achieving virality evolved and affected your business?
Well, I feel like going viral has certainly changed that meaning over the years. I think with some of the videos that are in our library, I'll throw out there, you may or may not have heard of, the Chewbacca mom, David after the dentist. Next month is the 5-year anniversary of the Pizza Rat, where there's been countless memes, countless merchandise. I think there's costumes, and I even think there's a baseball team, minor league baseball team named the Pizza Rats out there. But I think you're seeing less of those now, because there is just so much content being deployed into the world that there's almost a new viral video every day. So you're not going to get those huge viral videos, I think, that we were once getting, these named videos, just because there is so much content and so many different platforms. But I do think the common element, again, with all these videos is really great storytelling. And I also think humor is also a huge part of why these videos go successful. That's not given in every single video, but humor always seems to be a universal language. And again, coming back to the universal language, a lot of this content doesn't require language. A lot of these videos are language agnostic. I like to say, as a cute kid in any language. Like a pizza rat, you understand what's going on. You don't need subtitles for that. And that's what makes these videos, I think, so successful too, is that it could cross boundaries, cross cultures. People understand what's going on in the video. You don't need to be localization for that to happen. And that's what I think is so great about this content.
No, although having grown up in New York, I always thought that,
that's normal.
I can understand why they didn't, but I mean, there were two essential elements of New Yorkness in that Pizza Rat video, subways, rats, and pizza.
Right.
So.
but I've been in New York, been in the office many times. I've seen many rats, many pieces of pizza. I've seen a rat dragging a pizza. But I think what's so interesting about that is that with all the technology that we've invested in all the trends, because we're paying attention to the unit economics of every single video in our library, we're trying to identify those trends, trying to identify those algorithm changes on these video platforms. You spend a lot of money, a lot of time on analytics trying to predict that virality, which we're really good at. We can tell you that 2 cat videos over 30 seconds will monetize better than a cat and a dog. We're trying to get that granular about the data, but then all of a sudden comes a Pizza Rat video that goes absolutely viral, And there's no amount of algorithms or technology or analytics that we invested that can predict something like that. And that's why I kind of love the spontaneity of our business, that any day could change. It just kind of depends on the culture, the mood, and all of a sudden this one video rises to the popularity. So I'll take a lot of credit, and some of the bit stuff we do, I can't take it all. Sometimes just things pop and that variety happens, and it's just about timing, it's about luck, right moment, right place. No one could ever predict that Pizza Rat video.
You mentioned data, and that strikes me as a potentially interesting area to explore a little bit. You're sitting on some interesting data about, which videos or what types of videos, make an impact out there, monetize effectively. Is that a business that, other than for operational purposes, do you try to leverage that data in any way?
We leverage it internally in everything that we do. So on the licensing side of our business, we're trying to acquire the right videos for our right licensing customers. And we've also have a new offering on for our licensing customers. For folks that you're not a media entertainment business, that you're not a brand advertiser, big company, we're trying to reach also different types of publishers, small publishers. We made an announcement last week working with some of the MCNs to reach some of their video creators so they can use some of this really great video content for as low as $49. So it's another opportunity where we're leveraging data to segment our library to give to this handful set of independent, I would say, publishers or content creators. So that's kind of one way we're using data.
And one thing that you've done just recently, if I'm recalling correctly, is you've launched essentially a self-serve licensing platform.
Yes, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, the self-serve option is kind of the fourth category in our licensing business, where we're opening up the library, part of our library, to kind of reach and target these publishers, these independent creators. They're paying up very limited rights for a much less price per video, as opposed to the media companies that need a lot more rights. And so we want to help service them as they're creating content, particularly again during this time of COVID, where it's hard to do physical production, and hopefully we can supplement some of their production needs with this content.
We do have there are some questions from the audience, but before we get to those, I'm going to put up maybe Laura could put up the poll, the audience poll. We just wanted to, give folks out there a chance to weigh in on some of what we've been discussing and get a sense of the room. Who's out there, where do you fit in the overall UGC ecosystem? So that poll is now up. So please feel free to weigh in there. And we do have a few questions from folks in the audience. Raymond Farrell asks, do you seek to own any of the UGC, or are you only looking to license the rights, essentially?
Yeah, so we're really just looking, because there's so many people creating this content, and again, it comes back to being authentic. We're not really creating this content or this user-generated content ourselves. There's just so much content out there that we know someone else is creating it. And so we'll go out and license for them. So I don't think us ever creating the content ourselves from a UGC standpoint. However, we have taken these really great videos and we've created these consumer-facing brands. We verticalized our library to create these publishing brands that are socially distributed first, and then we'll create ancillary opportunities and upstream some of our programming on our social properties for OTT and streaming. And so that is content that we're creating from UGC. We'll add a host wrap, or we'll do a documentary series behind the video, talk to the creator of the video, do a clip show. And so that is where our content creation comes in, which is really kind of creating derivative works or jumping off point from the user-generated content itself. So that is content that we are creating. Short form for social, long form for some of the TV shows that we produce, or for our OTT and streaming channels.
But when you're acquiring content, do you acquire a video or ever acquire a video outright? Or
Very rarely. It's more of an exclusive license than anything else.
Okay. Ebony Tay, who's kind of a rightstech regular. Hi, Ebony. She says, "Hi, Jonathan. Thanks for your time. Can you discuss if your business has seen a major uptick in social justice vids with all the protests happening around Black Lives Matter and Gen Z and so forth?" Good question.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We've acquired a lot of that content, particularly in the first half of the summer when there was a lot of riots. A lot of, obviously there's a lot of cameras on those protests, and they were newsworthy. It was relevant for our own publishing efforts. It was relevant for our licensing partners. Obviously we are, very involved in those kind of topical conversations. Even though we can consider ourselves an entertainment media company, certainly what's going on in the world, we want to be part of the conversation, and we want to share some of those stories and videos with our clients and partners.
Is there any kind of content, UGC content, that's no-go as far as you're concerned? I mean, other than the obvious stuff, nudity and so forth.
Yeah, death, extreme violence. We consider ourselves, I think there's some news companies that will go represent some of that content that's similar to us. We try to avoid that. There is some crossover at sometimes, as you know, this content can be very subjective. But for the most part, we try to stay more entertainment focused. We kind of lean a little bit more on the comedy side, but there are cases, particularly around COVID, around these topical movements, that we were representing video owners in their content.
Raymond Farrell is back with another question. How difficult is it to clear the music that may be involved in the video?
Yeah, we don't touch it. We stay away from it. Very difficult because it's so difficult. So if the video
does there's music in the video, you won't touch it.
We will get the video, we'll get the visual, but we won't get the audio from that video. And if we're licensing out to our partners, we'll say, we're not this audio. You have to wipe it clean. You can use the visual. You can't use the audio. As you know, music is a complicated licensing requirements, and so
it's an understatement.
For us to not be involved in that, we just completely stay away from it. So we will acquire videos that do have music, and we just say we don't have any copyright to that. We won't try to clear it. It would be unless we're doing it for a production of our own, but other than that, we stay away from it.
But as I was discussing at the top of the show, there's been some movement among music rights owners to license music for use in videos. If it were a case such as that, where the music was essentially pre-cleared, would you be able and interested in including it?
If they own the music, just because it's cleared on a particular platform, which I think, I'm very opinionated about how I think these platforms have, stayed away from leveraging music and visuals. They kind of been a hands-off approach, which I think has been the wrong approach. They gain massive viewership and scale by saying they're an open platform and staying away from it. So I applaud them a little bit for moving in the right direction. But if it's owned by somebody else, so when you're signing a license agreement, you're claiming that you have the rights to everything. And clearly that may not be the case with music. So unless you created the work yourself, that's the only time we'll license it.
So another question from my old colleague, Simon Applebaum. Do you have what amount to essentially standards, and we've sort of discussed this, what amount to standards and practices for, videos, particularly when you're talking about something like the demonstrations and which in some cases has involved violence.
Yep.
Even if it's news, you would regard it as newsworthy. Do you stay away from it, or would you?
There'll be some crossover from time to time. Yeah. I mean, again, it's not, we don't have an automated platform, as in that we're just taking in any video that we want. People can upload. We get thousands of submissions a day. We only take about 1%, because we are putting eyes on every single video in our library. That's why we only have, some people may say 65,000, 70,000 is a lot of videos you have in your library, but it could be 700,000, right? We put eyes on every single piece of content, and it has to be verified through legal before we acquire it.
So if somebody wanted to submit videos to you as potentially monetizable, how would they do that?
Yeah, so if they're looking to earn participation and earn revenue on that video, they would just go to our website, which is just jukinmedia.com. You could also send the video in through our brand properties, which is the content brands that I talked about, which is People Are Awesome, Fail Army, Pet Collective, are the three major brands that we own and operate. We also accept submissions, but a lot of them come through the Jukin Media portal.
Okay. Laura, I'm not seeing the results on the poll. Oh, well, there they are. Now I am. Wanted to get a sense of, where people fit in the overall ecosystem of UGC. And the plurality of folks out there are mostly just viewers of it. They're not involved in creating it, although there are some regular creators on with us today, and a few folks who are involved in a capacity similar to you, who are representing or content being created out there, and there's some platform folks out there. So an interesting mix, but mostly lurkers, or at least the largest share are lurkers. Next question, not a huge surprise here, but just wanted to know whether essentially how COVID has affected your viewing of UGC. And the large majority of folks out there are watching more UGC. They're probably watching more content in total, both linear, OTT, and UGC. I guess it's not a surprise that
you're definitely seeing a rise in viewership and consumption. It doesn't matter if it's mobile, social, OTT, traditional linear. It's definitely, across the board. You've seen that a little flatten over the last month or so. I think just given summer and people being outside, I'm also certainly a little screen fatigue, probably like the rest of us. That's why I'm wearing these special glasses, because at the end of the day, my eyes are burning, and it's actually the last thing I want to do is and then turn on my TV and watch Netflix or Amazon or regular TV, just because of my eyes. I think we're all experiencing that a little bit. But the problem is, just because the viewership up, CPMs has been down and advertising's been down. So that's where it's been challenging. So we're seeing, our lowest CPM rate, they're slightly going back up now, but they were pretty low between March and July, which is unfortunate. So we may be seeing more people watching our videos, but there's less advertising being associated with those videos. And that comes down to less categories advertising, people cutting their spend, less fill rates. The CPMs have just
So
plummeted.
you're seeing a very similar dynamic there to what the broadcast and cable networks have experienced.
Absolutely. Yep. It's happening across all the social platforms as well. Facebook, YouTube, they've been definitely been challenged when it comes to their advertising revenue, and sharing that with video publishers like ourselves.
Ebony Tay wants to know what CPM is. That's cost per thousand views, essentially.
Yeah.
It's a standard measure for TV advertising, well, for all kinds of advertising, but what does it cost that's how advertising is priced on a CPM basis. Then we asked people to put on their M&A hats here. It's just sort of curious on my part. Who would you most like to see acquire TikTok as that saga drags on? And Microsoft seems to be the favorite, certainly over Twitter and Oracle, who are the two who have sort of publicly surfaced so far. Although there have been a lot of rumors about others that will or are about to or may surface in the future, and particularly since the president has now extended his deadline to 90 days, there's more time for potential buyers to work with there.
As long as it's not Google or Facebook, that's all I care about. As long as it's not Google or Facebook, they're big enough.
Yeah, I kind of doubt they'd even be able to at this
exactly
point, particularly with the increased scrutiny of their
antitrust and
the antitrust
privacy.
It's not a good time for them to be doing horizontal deals like that. Although about a third of the folks out there would like to see another buyer emerge. It seems to me but part of the problem is you'd be buying into the whole content moderation challenge, and that's probably going to get even more challenging as the scrutiny of moderation practices increases. And insofar as it, of course, we're talking about just TikTok in the U.S. For now, although I suppose it's not out of the question that somebody might try to do a global deal for TikTok if ByteDance if you laid enough money on ByteDance, and then you get into all sorts of problems around different rules in different jurisdictions. So that's it on our poll. We're just about out of time here. Is there anything we didn't cover, Jonathan, that you think is important that we should?
I think you hit all the notes. I thought those were really great questions, really great session. I really appreciate being asked to be here. I really feel honored, and great questions from the audience. And as you can tell, I'm very passionate about UGC, passionate about the space and streaming. And so I really appreciate you letting me come on today and inviting me.
Well, we appreciate your coming on. Ned, what do we have? Is Ned there? I'm not sure Ned is here. He was going to introduce tomorrow's session, but I'll do that in lieu of Ned. So tomorrow is Friday, so of course it's the business of music here at Let's Do Lunch. And the guest speaker will be Chuka Chase, who's the CEO of Integral. And he will be joined by Joseph Anderson, an attorney at Manat, Phelps & Phillips, which is the law firm that Ned also works with. We're gonna have to call it a wrap at this point. Thanks again for coming on, Jonathan. Thanks everyone out there for your questions, and we hope to see you next week, same time, same bat channel. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul.